everyone. Today in this lecture, we are giving a brief description of osteology and introduction of anatomy. Basically, what is anatomy? Anatomy is the study of structures of the human body. The term anatomy is derived from a Greek word anatom, meaning cutting up. The term dissection is a Latin equivalent to Greek anatom. So, as we know, in a medical field, anatomy is the foundation of all the subjects. It just not only the subject, but it also contains the whole foundation for medical students. So it is really important for medical students or medical aspirant to know all the information and all the important terminology related to anatomy. So basically, subdivision of anatomy, uh, initially the anatomy was studied mainly by dissection. So the main divisions are in such a way that first is the cadaveric anatomy, or you can say gross anatomy. Then there is living anatomy. It is studied by inspection, palpation, auscultation, endoscopic, such as bronchoscopy, gastroscopy, radiography, electromyography. Then apart from this, there is a third subdivision, that is developmental anatomy, embryology. It is the study of prenatal developmental changes in an individual. And histology, it is the study of structure under microscope or with the help of microscope. It is also known as microscopic anatomy. Then there is surface anatomy, topographic anatomy, study of deeper parts of the body. When we are going to study a part of the body in relation to the skin surface, it is very helpful in clinical practice and surgical operation. Then there are radiographic and imaging anatomy. It is the study of bones and deeper organs by plain and contrast radiography, by ultrasounds, computerized tomographic scans, and all. Comparative anatomy is just a study of anatomy of the other animals to explain the changes in form, structure, and function and of the different part of the human body. Then there is physical anthropology, deals with the external features, measurement of different races, groups of people, with the study of prehistoric remains. Then there is applied anatomy, also known as clinical anatomy, deals with the application of anatomical knowledge to the medical and surgical practice. Then apart from this, there is experimental anatomy, it's the study of factors which influence or determines the form, structure, and function of different parts of the body. Then there is last but not the least, that is the genetics, deals with the study of information present into the chromosome. So in this lecture we are giving a short brief description on the bones and the skeleton system. So we know what is bone. Bone is simply known as the one third of connective tissue, and the study of bones is also known as, over here we can see, osteology. Then what is basically bone is of one third connective tissue, as I told you. It is impregnated with calcium salts which constitute two-third part. The inorganic calcium salts mainly, here we can see on the top of the board it's written calcium phosphate, partially calcium carbonate, traces of other salts which make it hard and rigid, and which also can afford resistance to compressive forces of weight bearing and impact force of jumping. The organic connective tissues, these are the collagen fibers which make it tough and flexible. Then basically functions of bones is in a such a way that bone first provides surface for the attachment of muscles, tendons, ligaments, and all, and these serve as levers for muscular action. Bone marrow manufactures blood cells. Over here we can see through bone marrow. Bone marrow are of two types: red bone marrow, yellow or white bone marrow, and then bone stores 97% of the body calcium and phosphorus. Bone marrow contains reticuloendothelial cells which are phagocytic in nature and take part in immune responses of the body. So we'll talk about the classification of bones. Classification bone according to the shape, it is uh, first we'll see over here: long bones, short bones, flat bones, then irregular bones, then there is pneumatic bone, sesamoid bone, accessory, heterotrophic bones, then classification on the basis of the developmental stages, that the somatic bones, visceral bones, membrane bone, cartilaginous bone, and the membranocartilaginous. So basically, what are the long bones? Long bones has an elongated shaft that is also known as diaphysis and two expanded ends, epiphyses. We can also call it as head, and which are basically smooth or articular. This articulate is just a word then where the attachment takes place. So the shaft typically has three surfaces separated by three borders and a central medullary cavity and a nutrient foramen directed away from the growing end. Example: typical long bones are radius, humerus, ulna, femur, tibia, and fibula. Miniature long bones have only one epiphysis, like metacarpals, metatarsals, and phalanges. Modified long bones have no medullary cavity like clavicle. Then there is the short bones. Their shape is usually cuboid, cuneiform, trapezoid, scaphoid. Example: tarsal and carpal bones. Then there is the flat bones resemble shallow plates and form boundaries of certain body cavities. Examples: bone in the vault of skull, ribs, sternum, and scapula. Irregular bones such as vertebrae, hip bone, bones at the base of the skull. Pneumatic bone. Basically, pneumatic bones are certain irregular bones contain large spaces lined by epithelium such as maxilla, sphenoid, ethmoid, etc. These are the part of skull bone. They make the skull light in weight and help in resonance of air and act as air conditioning chambers for the inspired air. Then there is the sesamoid bone. These are bony nodules found embedded in the tendons or joint capsule. They have no periosteum, ossify after birth. They are related to an articular or non-articular surfaces, and the surface of contact are covered with hyaline cartilages, lubricated by a bursa synovial membrane. Examples: patella, pisiform, and fibula, and all that. Then there are the function. So the main function of sesamoid are is it resists pressure, it minimizes friction, and it alters the direction of a pull of the muscle and maintain the local circulation. So we have discussed with the sesamoid bone. Now we'll look towards the accessory bones. Accessory bones, or you can say supernumerary bones. These are not always present. These may occur as ununited epiphyses developed from extra center of ossification. Examples: sutural bones, ostrigonum, that is the lateral tubercle of talus, then vesilinum, that is the tuberosity of fifth metatarsal, etc. And heterotropic bones are the bones sometimes develops in soft tissues. Horse rider develop bones in adductor muscles, that is also known as rider bones. Then there is a developmental classification, and it is the classification on the basis of developmental stages. These are the membrane bones ossify in membrane, that is intramembranous or mesenchymal ossification, and thus derive from mesenchymal condensation. Example: bones of the vault of the skull and facial bones, cartilaginous bones. These are ossify in cartilage, intracartilaginous, and endochondrolar ossification. Others derive from preformed cartilaginous models. Examples: bones of limb, vertebral column, thoracic cage. And then there is membranocartilaginous bone, ossify partially in membrane and partially in cartilage. Example: clavicle, mandible, occipital, temporal, sphenoid. Then there is somatic bones. Most of the bones are somatic. And the visceral bones, these develop from pharyngeal arches such as head bones or part of mandible or ear ossicle. There are further classifications such as regional classification, structural classification, and all that. So basically the main classification is ended up with this, and here we can see the growth of the In this diagram we can see the growth of a bone. First, it initiates with the cartilage. Bone grows in length of multiplication of cells in the epiphyseal plate of cartilage, and bone grows in thickness of multiplication of cells in the deeper layer of periosteum. And bone grows by deposition of new bone on the surface. At the end, this process of bone deposition of by osteoblast is called appositional growth or surface excretion. However, in order to maintain the shape of the unwanted bone must be removed. This process of bone removal by osteoblast is called remodeling. This is how bone marrow cavity increases in size. Here we can see the cartilage. By this calcified cartilage is formed. Then there will be the production of primary center of uh, your ossification. Then at last we can see over here is the mature bone. So we are ended up with this lecture. In next lecture we are looking towards classification of bones and the number of bones and typically the vertebrae.